Well, hello, Rare Leader community. Welcome to another Rare Leader conversation with myself, Daniil. I'm not with myself, Tony Jalen, and the wonderful Daniil Jalen. I must not have my notes up there. I was thinking about it so often right now. So, for the past few weeks, we've talked about confidence and how to reclaim a confidence that you feel confident in. I almost call this the reclamation project. And, I read this many years ago that all human progress is preceded by a question. And there are 6 questions to seriously consider when you're thinking about going ahead and reclaiming your confidence. And over the past few weeks, we've talked about those questions. We're actually now in part 3. And the first question was, who are you? It's hard to know where you want to go. It's hard to know where you're at times. If you ever feel lost, if you don't have a clear identity around what your values are, like what's truly important to you. The second question is, what do you want? It's sort of like, imagine waking up all of a sudden 7 o'clock today in a car with no map, no Google Maps, no Apple Maps, no ways to direct you, and think, okay, where do I gotta go? I know that may sound funny, but in reality, sometimes that's how we're at in life. So getting a clear idea of truly, what do you want? And today's question that we're going to dive into is, what were your past successes? Why can this be a powerful question to ask ourselves, Daniil, when we're looking to go ahead and reclaim our confidence?
Well, I think when we take a look at what our past successes were, we can take a look at, what environment we were in, who was our company per se that we were with, our emotional state, the effort that we were putting in, and it really gauge where we're at now to what those successes were, to like kind of do a self check as far as, are we doing what we were doing in the past?
I think too, it's easy to forget what we have succeeded at when things aren't going our way. I think it's so easy to think about, oh, this is not working, and this is not working, or my confidence is not where it's at. And we forgot, like, you know what? You're at this point today because of all the things that you've gone through, all the struggles you've gone through, to experience today. And I truly believe that the struggles that we've gone through in our past gives us the opportunity and the growth and the strength to handle today's successes. Just may not be always in the way that we've envisioned it. So let's dig around a little bit more into your past. For those of you guys who are watching, whether it be on YouTube, Twitter, or on the Rare Leaders Facebook group, I think one of the questions when you're looking at your past is, where did you win? I think this is one that's easy. Chances are, the moment I asked that question, you thought of some times in your life when you really won. Like, what are some times in your life, Daniil, where you felt like you really won?
Well, I think, we worked on different projects together, and like when we were winning at those, we were really dialed in and disciplined on the process to make that happen. Different times that I've run races, I was really disciplined and adamant about what my schedule was and making sure that I was sticking as closely to that, because based on what others' experiences were following that, that's where the success came from.
Yeah. I think too, like, to dive into that, you talk about, as you said, in some ways, and I'll paraphrase this in my words, that success leaves breadcrumbs if you look back. And I think that's the next question to think about. As you look back to your times in which you had a win, what did you learn? I mean, and the truth is, not everything that we did ended up in a resounding success, right?
Right.
Sometimes we failed. But on the other hand, though, the journey was more worthwhile than the destination. So the question would be then, what knowledge did you gain along the way? You know, I coach volleyball for those of you guys who are just joining us for the first time. And I heard this quote this summer, and I think it's so true from a coach. And the coach said the only regret you typically have in coaching is the sub you didn't make. Right? When your gut told you, you know what, you should have probably done a sub at that moment, but you didn't do it. And that literally stuck home with me. And I literally made a decision changing that in terms of, you know, you don't want to have any of those regrets going back, especially when the gut told you to do. So that's the lesson that I learned recently, because knowledge is a powerful reminder. You're capable of many things, don't you think?
Oh, for sure. And I think that's like one of the biggest lessons that you can learn going back and seeing the successes is that you actually have it within you to make those happen. It's a choice of you tapping into that to make that the reality, or bowing out and using some sort of excuse not to fulfill that.
Right. And I think too, when we look back at our past successes, we can't forget the people that you meet along the way. Nothing ever happens by ourselves. As much as we want to go ahead and pat ourselves on the back, there's numerous things and people that had to be involved for us to achieve different levels of success. Yeah, we may have helped captain it, but again, we didn't do it by ourselves. So sometimes there's in your journey called life, there might have been that one conversation you had with someone, that one mentor, that one coach, that friend, that their support made all the difference for you. And I think about now, like, you know, the decisions that I've made along the way in my life, in terms of career decisions, even business decisions, I think it's been very vital to have those people around you. I mean, especially you, Danielle. You've been there along the whole ways with me, and I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, what helped my confidence in making different decisions along the way was and is your support, your encouragement, and your belief. But why do you think sometimes we forget about those people that we meet along the way that had helped us have successes and have some confidence along the way?
Well, I think sometimes, you part ways, and the distance between um, kind of like is more of a memory that they were there than, the biggest impact that they had on you being there. And sometimes, as we're going through journeys, there's people that we need to also eliminate from our circle. And you don't want to necessarily remember the bad things, but there's also lessons in those relationships that have helped you. And I think that sometimes they trigger different probably feelings. And so it's something that you don't want to remember, but I think that those are important things to remember.
Yeah. And you're true on that, because every person that we meet is a gift, whether or not it was a good experience, a bad experience, an indifferent experience, they're a gift. I think the next question you got to think about when you're looking at your past successes is what risks did you take? What risks did you take? At some time, you did something that you were thinking about trying, and it was absolutely amazing. Like, you blew your own mind that you did it. And whether it worked out or not, again, that risk is still a part of you. And you were daring enough to try it at that moment. I can think about just a recent time. I was talking to one of my volleyball players that I coach. And we talk about having an attack mindset. You got to attack things in life. You got to go at it in life. And the player had tried 2 times in a game to attack a ball, and that this person's position was setter. So instead of letting the ball come over once and do, pass, set, spike, she literally tried to go ahead and attack it. And it wasn't successful the first 2 times. And that was a pivotal moment at that time. But the coolest thing is she tried it again. and she was successful with the move. And she was so pumped up, right? And so, I mean, I think if you're not willing to make mistakes and experience failure along the way, I don't know if you really deserve to enjoy that success. Here's the next one. When it comes to looking at your past successes, and I'm curious what you think about this question, Danielle. What promises did you keep?
Well, I think the promises to myself of following through on the plan that I had set out, I think it affects not only yourself, but like those around you, seeing you take those the risks that you are taking and sticking to a plan, because it shows that if you're willing to do it, they can also do it too. And I think that it's kind of a snowball effect in that sense.
And I think too is that when you think about the promises that you keep in regards to that, when you say you're going to do it and you do it, and it may not have been always difficult to do, because some promises are easy to keep, right? I'm going to be able to keep that, no problem, And then there's other promises that are challenging to keep. I remember this was years ago when I made a commitment to write an article every week for a year, even the weeks that I was tired, even the weeks I had the flu and I was down and out. And if you've not written an article a week for 52 weeks, I invite you to do that. But I remember one time, it was later in the night or something like that, and you came in the office and you asked, "So did you write your article yet?" And being honest with you, at that moment, I was a little bit annoyed, annoyed at myself for telling you that I was going to do it for 52 weeks, and you reminded me probably. And I knew your intent was, just to help hold me to my own promise that I made. But once I did it, I felt good, right? So I think these are some good questions when you start to think about times in your life when you're proud of yourself. And we'll review them one more time as, where did you win in life? What did you know? What did you learn? Who did you meet along the way? What risks did you take? I think, I'm going to go back to that in just a moment. I think one of the biggest fears people have from going after something, trying something, is the fear of making mistakes. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's important to remember, because I know it's easy to hold yourself back because you don't want to mess up, is that you were never really good at anything to begin with. And you had to keep doing stuff over and over and over again to get to that point. And I think when we start to look at something new, we look at having to be uncomfortable. And that's probably what holds us back the most. But it's important to remember that you did start at ground zero on a lot of things and had to work at them to be good at them.
It's interesting to think about, like, you think of a baby, like, they have confidence when they're born, right? When they start to walk and they fall down, they get back up and walk, fall down, get back up when they're trying to walk. And they just don't think, hey, I failed miserably, I should never try this again. They just get back up again. So sometimes I think we got to have a mindset like a baby, right? And just like, okay, let's do it again. Oh, okay, do it again. And they don't know how exciting it is when they actually walk until they see our reaction to them walking, I think. But, ask yourself, what risks did you take along the way? And finally, what promises did you keep? It's like a mark of confidence in your ability to go ahead and follow through hugely. So that's those questions. Next week, we're going to be talking about the next question in terms of reclaiming your confidence. And it's really not truly about you. It's about others. And the question is, who do you care about? And we're going to dive deeper into that question here next week. But until then, as we go ahead and wind up here, Danielle, today, what would you say some final thoughts when we're thinking about the question of what were your past successes?
Well, I think it's just important, like I said, to look back at who you were surrounded with, who was encouraging you. Are they still there? Or, like what lessons were you able to learn from those that were around you? I think it's important to use the belief others have in you for a while, till you gain that belief in yourself to continue after those. But I just think that it's important to reflect on the past and what successes you had, and remember, it was probably a lot of effort, and really self-checking yourself. Are you willing to put that work in?
Yeah, no doubt. I could tell you for a fact that there was a period of time in my professional career where I recently had asked myself, do I want to put all that work in again? And when I looked at the big picture, going back to the other questions of what do you want, what's important to you, I'm like, you know what? I can do it. And it wasn't as hard work as I thought it did, because I didn't have the experience that I have now. So is it really going to be as hard? I don't know. So that's my final thoughts when it comes to this. But, if you found value in today's conversation, please do share this with others. It is on Twitter, it's on YouTube. And if you want to be part of the Rare Leader community on Facebook, send us a message. We'll get you invited in. More things to come. Again, what does it mean to be a rare leader? Someone who's resourceful, adaptable, resilient, and willing to engage with others. Until next week, I'm Tony Jalen with the wonderful
Danielle Jalen.
Go ahead, be a rare leader. Onward and upwards.